This is The Politics of Everything, and I'm your host, Amber Daines. Welcome to the podcast where we want to discuss the politics of everything, from money to motherhood, nutrition to narcissism, startups to secularism, the environment to equality, and much more. Our guests are experts in their field or topic of choice, even if you've not yet heard their name. This is a bipartisan podcast, so while we love exploring varied views and get a buzz from a healthy debate, by no means is this a one-sided forum for any one political view. So please listen up and enjoy the politics of everything. They say a picture paints 1,000 words, and the online world is full of imagery that makes us feel a myriad of emotions via Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and even LinkedIn, with our smartphone captured moments uploaded instantly. More than ever, we have brands realising the real power of the visual narrative. In speaking with Melinda Hird today, I really wish we had some kind of live video streaming on my podcast to be totally on theme. Melinda is a Sydney-based photographer and video creative who understands the importance of projecting the ideal image. She works independently with some of the best entrepreneurs and business leaders to help capture their pivotal moments and so much more. I'm keen to find out her top tips. Welcome to the show, Melinda.
Hi, Amber. Thanks for having me.
So as a kid, were you that creative kid always? Like, what were you like?
Oh, definitely. People used to always comment that I had a very active imagination. And, I think I always loved, anything got to do with stories or, fantasies. And, I think I was a big dreamer. So.
Were you great at visual art? Like, was that your thing, or did you have a variety of creative pursuits?
Oh, I did dabble with a bit of drawing, but yeah, it was more coming up with creative ideas or, like stories or something. Again, anything that had the imagination, it was definitely there. So I find that it does kind of help with what I do now.
Absolutely. I always think you can connect the dots backwards and work out how you got to where you were. It's partly your aptitude as well as obviously what you've learned.
Yeah.
In your early career, were you always a photographer or did you have some other things that you dabbled in?
Photography, actually, the first time I loved it was I went to Fraser Island when I was about 15 on a year 10 school trip. And I'll never forget it. I had this big fight with this girl who thought she was a bigger Prince fan because she had more memorabilia than I did. And I just had to go for a walk. I had to get away from her. So I grabbed my camera. I went walking along, these brumbies come out of the bushes, and I just loved animals at that stage. And I thought, I'm just going to take a photo of him. And it wasn't until I came back to Sydney, developed a film, that, seeing that actual visual of the horse with its reflection in the water, with the rolling surf coming in the background, the clouds overhead, that real kind of afternoon bluish grey storm, that kind of made me realize then how much of an impact an image can have. And I was instantly, transported back into that moment of time. So from there, I kind of, dabbled a bit more with the photography. I studied it in year 11, but because year 12 didn't credit towards the HSC, I had to drop it, which was a shame. Yeah.
And did you study afterwards? Did you do any postgraduate courses, or how did you actually really start to really hone your creative skills into perhaps what would become your career?
No, the funny thing is, because I was the eldest child, it was very much, go out, get a job, get some money.
What was your first job?
Oh, it was corporate. I was working the corporate. So I started off, doing reception, then worked up to doing PA, but I was never happy. I was never satisfied.
Didn't like being tied to the desk so much?
No. I'm an outdoors. I need to be outdoors. I need to be working with people. And, a lot of the stuff that I was doing, even though it was like a team creative role, it was a team role. It didn't have any creativeness to it. Pretty much, I'd always, on the weekends, I'd be out, at friends' houses. I'd be the goofy one with the camera. So everyone would be drinking and having a good time, but I'll be like there also snapping away. Like, I just need to be busy. And I just had that urge to be the one to capture what's going on. And I think that's kind of helped going into events and, dealing with people. The corporate world was fantastic in the sense that, I learnt to speak the corporate language, and there's a certain business element to that you need as well, the skills when running a business.
Totally. So that's what I want to tap into now. So how do you turn this talent into a business? Like, did you work for other people first as assistant photographer, or did you just take this massive leap of faith?
Massive leap of faith. Yeah.
And how long ago was that?
Oh, geez. It was, I had my daughter Alexis in 2009. So around about 2008, I just said to my husband, I can't do this anymore. I couldn't really get the promotions. And, everything going back, with the photography, it was self-taught. So I never did any further studies. But my husband said to me, what do you want to do? And I said, hon, I really just want to do photography. And he said, go for it. So I think having somebody to back you up and to support you, that helped greatly. So, and that was pretty much it. And then took the big leap of faith, jumped into it.
Never looked back?
No, never.
Amazing.
It was always meant to be, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I know how great your work is.
Yeah.
So to get a little bit intellectual on you, I know that the printing press many years ago really catapulted the mass media, and that's my background. So I'm always fascinated with the history of any industry. And photography did the same about 150 years ago. And I think that whole idea of image communication came to the fore perhaps in the 1950s around the Mad Men era with advertising and TV and billboards, and suddenly an image really meant something. It wasn't just about the words and a picture. The picture could actually replace some of the words as well.
Yeah.
Over your time in the industry, have you seen imagery change, and how? Like, is it how we receive it that's different because it's now on our phones as opposed to just in a magazine or in a billboard when we're driving? Are some of the principles the same, or is it vastly different because of the technology?
I think, if we go back, we back in the film days where, you couldn't just go snap, snap, snap away. So you really had to take the time, understand, the technique and, of how to take a great picture and know what to look for and to wait. I think there was a lot of patience. And I think
we're missing that a little bit now, aren't we?
Yeah. Everything's
all
just
instant.
Like bang, bang, bang. Yeah. It is very instant. But I think, it's good and bad. Like, I think if you look back at old photographs, they really don't need any words to describe, what the message is being said. But with today's technology and the smartphones and everything, there's that access to be able to take more photos, but it can be few and far between. However, saying that again, with the, social media, we are seeing such incredible images coming from, like not so much, it doesn't always have to be the professional photographers, but they could be amateur, photographers, and they'd be taking some incredible, scenic or nature shots around the world, or, if there's something that's going on, whatever it is, like we are able to access it. So we're seeing a lot more.
So it's maybe more prolific, and it's just more, I think we're more used to it too. We sort of expect visual imagery now because we're all socially media connected. We're not sort of waiting for the next big ad to come out. I remember as a kid, in the 1980s, you might have the same ads for a long time before that brand reinvented. But because now we've got influencers and we've got social media campaigns, it is short.
Very
periods of time that we're seeing something and then they move on.
Unless it makes an, impactful sort of moment.
Yeah, it's really changed.
Right.
It's totally changed. So can you give us a description of how you create your visual story process for your client in a way perhaps that other forms of communication can't? So if you're thinking about either your photos or your video process, what is it that you do that's a bit different to perhaps how we might do it if we were just as amateurs snapping away?
I think it's having that moment to really think about what it is that we're capturing. Like, I get to know the client first, and usually I tend to find the more I speak to the client, that's when I get like a visual pop into my head, and it's like, okay, perfect. I've got an idea of how we're going to photograph you. That's going to make sense. It's going to be different to, the last 5, 10, 15 people I photographed before, because it's all about bringing out their authenticity. It's all about, how can we create some new magic? How can we, make you come alive? So yeah, it's definitely getting to know the person.
And if you've never met them before, how does that work? Like if it's just over the phone, how does that work?
It definitely comes, it's still that communication sort of thing.
Because you ask them a series of questions?
Yeah.
Is there a bit of a process?
There's definitely a process. There's lots of questions I ask about them. And it's just finding that moment.
Do you think that people often don't know what they want?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, do you find people that are really great at what they do, but they're either, a lot of people don't like their photo being taken, let's be honest.
I don't.
How ironic.
I know, but you just got to suck it up really at the end of the day. And look, there's that understanding of that. And that's why the people that I work with, they aren't just looking for just a headshot. Like they actually need a series of images to not only cover their profile, but their website, their marketing, but also now, with social media, we can create more of an influence. So to be like, a person's face, particularly if they're the face behind the brand, you can start creating influence. You can either put up a strong tagline or, you can have a quote or something that adds value to the clients that are coming to them. So that's kind of the process that we do, like the prep work beforehand, before the actual photo shoot. And I find that kind of calms them down a little bit more. Like if they've got an understanding of how the photos are going to be used afterwards, then it's a lot easier. But generally, look, I get 20 minutes. I still get nervous even photographing them because I don't know them yet.
Of course. And it's a very intimate thing, really, because the pressure is on you to capture a lot.
Yeah.
Often they've invested some time and money in the process.
Yeah.
It must be a bit of a challenge just to overcome your own nerves, even though you do this every day and you're great at it.
Yeah, and they're nervous too. So until they kind of get used to it, and it's usually, I find, it's about the first 20 minutes, like no photo is really going to work. But then they'll do something. They'll just relax into their own natural state. And that's when I go, got you, and that's when it's like, it becomes a lot more easier, the process. And I can sort of understand, because not everyone's going to be posed the same way.
That's right. Body language is different.
I love it. And that's what I love looking for, body language,
Absolutely. How important are the other visual cues about, what we wear, obviously the environment where we get photographed in, and even some of the natural environments that we might choose, even positioning our bodies? I mean, how do you help people in that process if they don't know where they need to be shot, and they don't want just a boring office, because let's face it, that rarely works. How do you actually make that decision as a collaborative process with that client?
Yeah, so again, it's just the prep work beforehand. Like some people, they do come to me, they say, I don't want a boring office corporate shot. And it's like, okay, then we need to talk about your styling as well, because how is it that you want to come across? Like, are you an entrepreneur? What's your unique talent? What is your unique look and feel? How do you, who are your clients? Who is your audience? And it's just that digging and finding out. And then again, it'll be like, right, I've got the perfect place. I actually did a lot of weddings. Like I branched out and did weddings. So the advantage of that was knowing so many awesome locations around Sydney, so many little hidden gems and treasures and all that sort of thing. So it's like together with, I work with some stylists as well. So that helps too. So it's
so sometimes people probably need the additional, if you like, the team, the kind of crew that's going to help put them together, like whether they be makeup artists, stylists. A lot of people, even with the media training work that I do, it's all about like what are they going to wear? How do they come across as
and that's important.
The right way? What's going to look great on camera? What looks great floating along at a wedding doesn't always translate if you're going on business TV or you want to use it for, your LinkedIn profile. You've got to be mindful that it's got to be appropriate as well as beautiful.
Absolutely. And that's why I love working with entrepreneurs, in particular, like female entrepreneurs, because there's so much gorgeous styles out there, and they have a lot more confidence, and they're happy just to be themselves. So it's just piecing everything together.
Do you work with men as well, or is it predominantly women?
I do. There's some great people.
What's the major difference between men and women, besides the types of clothes they wear? And obviously one's a man and one's a woman. Is there differences in their expectations, how quickly they want to get through things? I mean, is there kind of something general that you can imagine that when you know that the male client's coming, you have to be more aware of versus the female?
Yeah, men want it quickly.
So they can't believe it takes a whole day to get a handful of images sometimes.
Yeah, no. Whereas the ladies, like, they're happy to do half a day, and there's so many different outfits that we need to go through as well, just to give them that variety for them.
Yeah, a lot of men, it's just the suit, right?
Yeah, there is. So, but yeah, I think some men are getting a little bit more trendier now.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think people wear ties anymore. I do notice that. That's kind of done unless you're over 60.
Yeah.
How would you describe what you really do through your photography? Is it about capturing the brand's DNA, shining into someone's soul? I mean, there's a little bit of all of that. I mean, how do you really get that sparkle going in your photography?
I love that. You seriously have just described that to a T, because it is about capturing, a brand's DNA, or, like capturing their soul. And there's been many times where I've looked through the lens of the camera, and because you're making eye-to-eye contact at sometimes, it's like, oh my goodness, there you are. I've got you. You look gorgeous. I found you. And that's what's going to like really shine through and connect, because the whole point of taking, personal brand imagery is to have that connection with the client's audience. We need to make that happen, we need, make it look really good. Background has to work. Everything has to work. So it's everything just clicks, excuse the pun, but it's amazing. And also, just capturing the soul.
How do you challenge your clients? Because a lot of people would have a preconceived idea of, I've had these photos like this before. I just want to refresh. So do you try and push people to take on new challenges and maybe go somewhere they haven't gone before? And how do you encourage them to do that?
I think it's more because it's such a competitive, noisy, environment that we're in. It's like we really need to be standing out more. And, you mentioned just briefly before, like, with a billboard, and that's sometimes how I describe to people. It's like, imagine your image is like a billboard, like people are going through social media just as quickly as they're driving along the freeway. So you need to have a strong image that's going to pop, and with a strong, worded message or a tagline or a quote, something that shows your personality, because this is what's going to separate you from everybody else. It's your personality, it's your values, it's, your thoughts. So by having a series of images that you can sort of use or act as like, your billboard to grab people's attention, it could be on your blog heading or something like that, or a LinkedIn article, anything that will stop people, the good image and the good tagline is going to help your brand.
Absolutely. Now, video is something which I know that you do very well as well as the photography. Exciting. It is an evolution for your business, but I suppose it's where the market is now. People watch videos before they'll read a blog or a long article in the newspapers. So how has that sort of been for you in terms of turning your still imagery skills into video? What else have you had to really tap into to make that work for your clients?
Oh, it's bringing it alive, really. Like photography, picture says 1,000 words, as you mentioned, but video is bringing it to life. People, I think they're just so, we got now Netflix where it's on demand. We like to watch. People are watching all the time. So video is more interactive. I think it's amazing. I had to take that evolutionary step because it was like, it goes hand in hand, really. People, I found when I was doing photography, I was always asked, do you do video? And I kept referring it off to other people. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? And to be able to come up and sit back and, look at a script and again, really sort of work out how are we going to piece this together? Because, you need to be doing 2 to 3 seconds less sometimes, to piece a good video. And to me, it's like your movie trailer. You go to the movies and before your movie comes on, you watch, 2 or 3 previews. And usually those trailers, they nail it in a couple of minutes. Whereas we've got to nail a brand story or a brand message in anywhere between 90 seconds and 2 minutes. So
we have very short attention spans as well, don't we?
We are. But it's understandable.
Don't watch 5 minutes of things now. They decide pretty quickly whether they want to pursue it or not. And as you say, that even 90 seconds, it might be a lot of work to even pull that together, I imagine.
Yeah. And the first 5 seconds counts the most, really. So they're either going to love it or hate it in those first few seconds.
No pressure, Mel.
No.
So becoming a videographer and a photographer are great skills. Do you have anything else that you've got in the pipeline? Where else do you see your business going?
Wow, good question. Where's the future going? I think as a business owner, you have to evolve. And I think it's like every 2 years, you need to look at what's going on, what's happening. There's so much, but at the moment, I think I'm happy. These are my 2 loves, my 2 passions. I always wanted to do video, but I could never, years and years ago, like it was just too difficult.
It wasn't the appetite as well, maybe. Like people would see it as a really expensive add-on, but not necessary. Whereas I think people now see it as necessary to have some sort of video content.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll be left behind.
They'll be left behind. And again, with the smartphones, they've just made it more easier. But it's about the quality at the end of the day.
I'm all about the quality. Yeah. I know. It's probably why I've shied a little bit away from, and I know it's very popular, things like Facebook Lives and so forth, because a lot of what I do is with professional media. So I'm always very, very conscious that, me walking around in my active wear doing a video in my local park is probably not quite right for my audience, even though for other people that works perfectly if they're in, lifestyle programs or something like that.
Yeah,
so
you have to be on brand. I agree with you.
You can't just dabble in it and go, oh, well, I'm going to do these videos. And then suddenly it's like it doesn't work anyway, because you can invest a lot of time doing this kind of social media and it actually doesn't go anywhere as well.
True.
So you've got to make sure, I guess, that the audience is there that wants that content as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a number of years ago, there was a film that stuck out of my mind. It's called Tangerine. You may not have seen it, or you may have.
Yeah, I did,
and it was actually entirely shot on the iPhone 5. Incredible. And it was an interesting, I guess, shift from what we consider professional image or filmmaking, which is, often we hear about these Hollywood productions that go on for 6 to 12 months or more. And all the editing involved just to have our, 2-hour film. But this was entirely shot on the iPhone 5. And I guess the colours and everything were very familiar because we're very used to seeing so much film now through our smartphones. Can smartphones really replace that high-end filming process, or do you see it as supplementary? And how does that really impact your industry if everyone feels like they can do it themselves?
Oh, yeah, it's some days I think, oh gosh, this is scary. Like, this is so good. Even like with the photographs that you can get from, cameras.
And each smartphone seems to have a better and better camera. Like literally the phone is not about making phone calls now. It's often about the imagery.
It's a camera that can make calls. Yeah.
And we can filter it. We can make it look amazing. And
yeah. Look, I think they'll always improve. I think the technology's there to always improve, but same with the, professional, digital cameras and all. Like, there's the gimbals and the stabilizers that come along with it. I think it serves its purpose. But for example, I don't think you could shoot a high quality car ad, that we're so used to seeing. So that market, BMW, will always go to a high end projectional video production company to shoot that.
So in terms of what brands will do, you think they'll still rely mainly on the
absolutely,
on the
because again, it's about, they've got a lot of competition too, so they need to look the best. And this is the whole thing too. But for this sort of movie, I thought it was brilliant. I like documentary sort of style. Yeah, absolutely. iPhones can kill it. Like they'll do so well. But again, it just depends on what purpose, and it depends on the brand and what expectations they want, because you just look at the quality that's being produced. As I said, like, for example, that was just, the car ad. People are always going to want that still.
And I guess with people's images evolving over time, how often do you recommend, obviously, you're in the business of photography, so you might say every month, but realistically, how often do people really need to update their imagery so that it reflects who they are now, and not use those 6-year-old photos from on LinkedIn, and then people meet you and go, oh, you don't look like that anymore?
I think people are waking up to that now. I think they are. Some people might be happy with that for 5 years. Like, they may not have a personal brand. They might just be happy. General rule, 2 years is ideal. But yeah, I've had clients where they will want updates every 6 months to a year.
Wow.
Because there's just so much going on,
I sometimes feel like you've got some amazing hero images that you would supply, and then you feel like everyone's seen them. I think now, it's very, because we use images so much, everyone wants a headshot or a bio and, information about you, that you feel like you even get bored of your own images after about a year or so.
Yeah.
Which, it's challenging.
One thing I love noticing is, like, if someone, say, for example, changes their, profile image on Facebook, and if it's particularly been shot professionally, there is so much comments and likes to it. Whereas the golden oldie rule was like, no, don't change your profile photo, keep it the same. But I agree with that in some regards. Like, you wouldn't change it every few weeks.
No.
But
that irritates me when people do that.
Maybe 6 months, maybe a year, you know what I mean? But the thing is, it's that brand awareness, and I think people do like to see something new and something different. So, yeah.
And they engage with it clearly, because like you say, you get more comments and likes than you would if
hundreds.
You posted something that might be, a major announcement about a job or something. You might get a couple of comments, but a photo, if they love it or they think it's gorgeous or, you look your best, they will definitely comment.
Yeah, they'll comment, they go, this is you, this is just,
you look amazing. Yeah, lots of likes, even some love hearts.
Lots of love hearts, yeah.
So, in terms of your own experiences as a business owner, who have been some of your valued mentors and peers, and what have they taught you about success in life? Have you got a couple of people that have really helped, I guess, get you to that next level? And they don't have to be famous, and they can be members of your family even. But, you know, that couple of people that you always think, oh, wow, I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for some of their advice. Or I still recall the time they told me that I needed to do this, and I did it, and it changed everything.
I think pretty much from the moment I started my business, I knew I had to get out and network. So I've surrounded myself with, you know, smart people, or, you know, people who run businesses, because I'm constantly on the need to learn more and, you know, and keep evolving. So there's been great, you know, like leadership and some female networks I've been a part of. She Business was one for a while. I'm now part of LBD, like Little Black Dress Group, with Janine Garner, and I think she's amazing. And just with the women in that group as well, I've just learned so much, and there's a lot of support. So I think it's like it goes two ways. But one particular person who I've been watching lately is Glenn Carlson. Now, he is incredible.
And what do you like about Glenn?
Well, I just think if you look at his Facebook, his videos are amazing. Like, he's mixed it up with, you know, a little bit of infographics, but he's got the confidence, you know. He's adding so much value to his viewers. And yeah, the way he's put it all together. So it'll have him, it'll go to infographics, but the message is just always the same. It's coming from a place of help. And you know, all his brand photos are brilliant as well. Unfortunately, I haven't done it.
Glenn, if you're listening.
Yeah, Glenn, I'm keen to work with you.
Interesting. So you
really
can be influenced by people clearly that you have never met. That sounds like it doesn't just have to be those touch points where you're actually physically with them. You can actually be inspired and mentored.
I'm inspired
externally.
Very much by him, but I'm also fascinated what he does, because this is how I'm sort of wanting, you know, people who I work with to say, look, this is how you can do this too. You know, you just got to be brave and have a go.
Absolutely. And to wrap up, what would be your final checklist of advice for anyone trying to master the politics of image? Maybe 1, 2 or 3 tips that you'd love to leave the listeners with.
I think number one would be know your message. I think that's really important. Like, who are you? What's your message? What do you have to offer people? Because I think that's going to work powerfully with your imagery. And then, you know, think about how it is how do you want people to feel when they look at your photo? You know, so that can come down to, you know, your presence or the background of an image, the styling of your clothes, like all that is so important. And then just let go, have fun, you know, get into a little bit of an acting moment, have a sip of champagne if you need to, but this isn't painful, you know, this is just fun. And, you know, this is going to help.
And it'll benefit you at the end of the day, I guess. So that's,
absolutely.
People have to always remember that.
Yeah.
Particularly if they don't enjoy the process.
Yeah, exactly. They'll enjoy it afterwards. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
If you want to contact Melinda Hird, her details will be on our show notes. Until next time, keep well. Thanks for listening today. If you've enjoyed the politics of everything, we thrive on feedback. So please add a short review and share the podcast with your network and your friends and family. I'm also always on the hunt for fabulous new guests. So if you've got a view to share and an idea how to get our listeners excited, please email me at amber@bespokecomms. That's BESPOKECOMMS.com.au, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Until next time.